In the subcompact crossover segment, the major contenders are usually motivated by a petrol engine. Now, while that may seem like the norm, there is an outlier that fitted a diesel motor in a subcompact crossover. Ample space, easy to drive, and the fuel economy and torque of a diesel engine, now that got me really interested. In this video, we check out the Ssangyong Tivoli Diesel Premium and see if a diesel subcompact crossover can be a worthy contender. Let's do this! Hello guys, I'm Reagan and welcome back to another car review. If you're new to my channel, I hope you hit that subscribe button and become part of the Reagan's Rides Army. If you're my subscriber already, thank you so much for your support by watching this video. I also hope that you give it a like. Also, special thanks to Ssangyong Philippines for lending us this Ssangyong Tivoli Diesel Premium for the weekend. If you have any inquiries about the Ssangyong lineup, you may contact them in my description below. Now, everybody knows that diesel is the more popular fuel in the Philippines because it's cheaper than gasoline and it could give you gobs of torque while maintaining a stellar fuel economy. However, most diesel options in the country are either large pickup trucks or large SUVs, which could be a bit unwieldy to drive, especially since you don't really bring your entire family with you all the time. Now, the closest small diesel crossovers in the country are the Honda CR-V, the Mazda CX-5, and the Kia Sportage, all of which would cost you an arm and a leg in order to access. Now enter the Ssangyong Tivoli Diesel Premium. This variant is the top spec Tivoli in the country and it retails for 1,290,000 Philippine pesos. Sure, it's a little bit on the pricier end of subcompact crossovers, especially when you compare it to the up-and-coming Chinese car brands. But guys, let's remember that, well, diesel-motivated vehicles are always more expensive than their gasoline counterparts. Let's also see in this video if this top-spec Tivoli Diesel Premium can give you more features that can help justify its high cost. Now, the first thing that strikes me when I look at the front fascia of this Tivoli is how square this crossover looks. It may be small, but it exudes a masculine vibe because of its chunky nature and all of these sharp lines and angles that you can see here in the front fascia. The Tivoli Diesel Premium has LED DRLs, but unfortunately, you only get halogen headlights and halogen fog lights here. The good thing though is you get a projector type housing for your headlights, so it's easy to go to the aftermarket and upgrade these units into full HIDs. Now, I'm used to seeing chrome window trim around the window sills of vehicles, but it's the first time that I've seen that on top of the hood of a car. Now, what are these things for? Are they here to help aid in its aerodynamics? I'm not really too sure, guys, but I have to admit, it looks kind of good. Now, when I look at the side profile of the Tivoli, it reminds me of the Kia Soul, mainly because of the abrupt cutoff that can be found here at the rear end. It adds to that K-pop flavor of the Tivoli. Oh yes, and in case you're wondering, the Tivoli is from the land of K-pop because Ssangyong is a Korean car company. Their tagline is the Korean SUV specialist. So if it's alright with you guys, quit calling them a Chinese car company. Now, the Tivoli is literally quite sharp as well. When you look at the shape of the door frame and look at the window area, my goodness, look at that. This is one of the sharpest window frames that I've seen in any of the cars that I've reviewed. It's so sharp, it could actually cut a finger. I'm just kidding, guys. Now, the good thing here is when you close the door, you get a nice solid thunk that makes the Tivoli feel like it's a premium crossover. Now, this top spec Tivoli gets power folding side mirrors here with LED side repeaters, and I love how they put these large front and rear hunches here. The rear hunch in particular is so large that you could actually see it on your side mirror when you're driving the Tivoli. Now, these hunches are needed because the Tivoli sports larger than usual wheels at 18 inches. These 18-inch wheels are wrapped in 215/50 R18 tires. Now, behind these wheels, you get ventilated disc brakes up front and solid disc brakes at the rear end. Now, the suspension is a little bit on the budget side though because the Tivoli has a McPherson system up front and only a torsion beam at the rear end. And you might as well let go of your fantasies of going on a rough trail because the Tivoli's ground clearance is also a bit on the tame side. The ground clearance of the Tivoli stands at only 167 millimeters, which is kind of low for a subcompact crossover. Now the rear end of the Tivoli is a mix of simple and busy at the same time. I love the clean, simple lines that can be found here in the liftgate, which if you pair it to these gorgeous looking LED taillights in an Altezza type housing, comes together to give it a nice clean look. I also love the design that they did for these LED taillights. This would differentiate it from the sea of crossovers that can be found in the highway. Now the liftgate also has that meaty and chunky look to it, and it reminds me of all things, guys, body armor. It reminds me of a bulletproof vest for some reason. Now when you go down to the rear bumper, that's where the busy part comes in. You've got large bulges here on the left and the right side of your rear bumper, and when you go down to the lower part, you've got a ton of character lines and angles here that makes it really look quite busy. Now I've seen my fair share of these fake dual exhaust pipes in these crossovers, but it's the first time that I've seen a fake center exhaust pipe right here. Now I must admit, this is quite original, guys, but I'm not really liking the look, okay? It reminds me of a pig's nose. It looks like a pig's snout. Now, when you pop open the manual liftgate of the Tivoli, you get 393 liters of cargo capacity, which is quite substantial when it comes to these subcompact crossovers. How substantial? Let's check it out with our luggage test. Here is my medium-sized luggage, and as you can see, despite being a little bit on the high side, it could easily swallow my medium-sized luggage. And there's still a lot of room to spare on the sides for smaller items. Now, if you need more space than 393 liters, you could always tumble down the second row seats and more than double the capacity of your Tivoli. Now, another good thing about the Tivoli Diesel Premium is that this comes with a donut spare tire, which is always an added plus in my book. Now the star of the show can be found right here under the bonnet. While most subcompact crossovers would normally have a gasoline motor, what we have here in the Tivoli Diesel Premium is, well, as the name says, a diesel engine. This here is a 1.6-liter turbo diesel 4-cylinder motor that churns out 134 horses and 324 Newton meters of torque. Now power is sent to the front wheels via a 6-speed automatic transmission. Now normally diesel vehicles would have a stellar fuel economy, and the same can be said for this Tivoli Diesel Premium as long as you're staying on the highway. You see, going to this location on the highway, I was able to net 14 kilometers per liter, and well, that's especially good because I was in sport mode and I was doing some high-speed highway pulls just to see how engaging the Tivoli Diesel Premium is to drive. And a little hint, guys, it is quite engaging to drive. Now, when I got into the city and my average speed dropped down to 14 kilometers per hour, well, my fuel economy also went down to almost 7 kilometers per liter, which is quite dismal for a diesel-powered vehicle. Now, granted, this media unit that I have here has less than 300 kilometers on the clock, and I was also on sport mode the entire time. So, yeah, maybe as the engine gets broken in, the fuel economy might improve as time goes by. Now, when you step inside the cabin of the Ssangyong Tivoli Diesel Premium, you'll see that this has received some tech updates that cannot be found in the previous generation, and it is all quite good. Now, the Tivoli is the budget subcompact crossover entry in Ssangyong's lineup, and as such, even this top spec variant gets only leatherette seats. These are faux leather, and you could tell from the texture of this material that it is really not genuine leather. It has that rubbery feel to it, although I love the shape and I love the design, and I also love the fact that they put some nice perforated finishes in the center of the seats. These are not ventilated seats though, a feature that we saw in the previous generation but can no longer be found in this newer Ssangyong Tivoli Diesel Premium. That's a little bit of a bummer. However, your steering wheel is a full genuine leather wrap steering wheel here, and you've got nice perforations in the areas where you normally would hold the wheel, and that is the 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock position. The wheel also adjusts for tilt, but it doesn't telescope, so at least you have that tilting function in this subcompact crossover. You've got your usual buttons here for hands-free connectivity and all that, and you have a bunch of glossy piano black finishes on your wheel. When you look at your instrument gauges, this is the first major tech update that you could see in this new Ssangyong Tivoli Diesel Premium. This gets a fully digital instrument gauge cluster, and the gauge design could change depending on the mood you're in by pressing, well, the button here on your steering wheel. I especially like the all red sporty design theme that you could get here in your Ssangyong Tivoli Diesel Premium, because it reminds me of the taillights of a Lamborghini. Imagine that, getting a diesel subcompact crossover and you get gauges that look like a Lambo's taillights. That is pretty awesome, guys. Now, from your 10.25-inch instrument gauge cluster here, the infotainment system will not be left behind. This is an 8-inch touchscreen infotainment system that has Bluetooth connectivity, and you also have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Now, the infotainment system also has a reverse camera. The image comes out here and the resolution is pretty good. You don't get a 360-degree view camera, guys, but it's not really a problem because this is still a small subcompact crossover. Now, you also have your manual climate control system here. It looks good, guys, but it is still a manual system. And though the infotainment system and the climate control system are nicely integrated here in your center area, well, it's placed in a housing that is made of glossy piano black finish, and the shape also reminds me of a tombstone. All right, let's be a little bit more positive. It reminds me also of a shield. So it depends on how you look at it, guys. But in my case, it reminds me of like the same design that can be found in the first generation Mazda Miata's tombstone center area, center panel. So yeah, it's quite unique and original, but yeah, it still reminds me of a tombstone. Now, when you go down from there, you have your solo USB port here, which you plug into to access Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. And you also have a 12-volt power outlet there. And you also have this, a nifty cigarette lighter with a matching ashtray. So in case you want to light up a smoke inside your Tivoli, well, Ssangyong got you covered. Your 6-speed automatic transmission is connected to this shifter that also has this glossy piano black finish, and you don't get an electronic parking brake in the Tivoli. Rather, you still have a manual e-brake here and two very smallish cup holders, which I am pretty sure will not pass my clean canteen test. So this is my clean canteen. Let's check it. Bang. See, it doesn't go in. It's quite shallow and it's quite small, so that is a definite fail. So since it fails my clean canteen test, let's check out the straight pipes visor test. So let's see if the Tivoli's visor will pass that test. 3, 2, 1. Oh, nope, sorry, doesn't pass. It's also a fail, guys. But at least the Tivoli Diesel Premium also gets this nice leather wrap center armrest here, and you also have a nice cubby there. Now, when you look at the whole cockpit area in terms of the materials used, well, I love the fact that Ssangyong incorporated a lot of nice textures here in the cabin. You've got this nice texture here in the door cards that's still made of plastic, but it's really nice to hold even and to look at. And you've got some nice soft panels here on your door panels, and you also have a nice padded elbow rest here on your door cards. But when you look at the whole materials that have been used, well, you've got a lot of hard plastics here and there. So yeah, it may be made mostly of hard plastics, but at least they were able to design it properly. It looks really futuristic. It has that nice robotic vibe to it. And to be honest, guys, I'm digging the look. Now, the Tivoli has a spacious back seat, and it's quite a surprise given the small footprint of this subcompact crossover. Maybe it's because of that squarish shape that we have here. I'm 5'6", guys, and as you can see, this is my driving position, and I got a good 7 inches of knee room and around 6 inches of headroom before my head touches the headliner. This is pretty good, and it could easily fit 3 average size adults here, although it's gonna be a little bit on the tight side, but at least it is still quite doable, mainly because the center tunnel is also on the low side. Now, when you look for toys, you really couldn't expect much toys here at the back seat, even in this top spec Tivoli Diesel Premium. You get a center armrest here, that's a plus, and you also have a couple of cup holders there. But you don't get rear AC vents here, and you do have some harnesses here that could also hold some stuff instead of a seat back pocket. Now, one of the good things about getting a media unit that is pretty fresh from the factory is the fact that, well, we got some nice plastic bits here that we could peel off. Now, it's sort of like an unboxing, guys, but I really love doing this. Woo, look at that. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Woo. Oh, that is so satisfying. Fantastic. Now let's go out for a drive in this Tivoli Diesel Premium. Alright guys, so we're now behind the wheel of the Ssangyong Tivoli Diesel Premium, and the first thing that I notice is, well, how high the belt line and the dashboard feels or looks from here in the driver's seat. You see, it's so high that it feels like you're seated inside the seat, not on the seat. I don't even know if that means something, guys. Yeah, but that's what I feel. It feels like you're seated quite low inside the car. So that's something that you have to get used to when you're driving the Ssangyong Tivoli Diesel Premium. Now, when it comes to seat comfort, guys, I'm happy to report that the seats of the Tivoli are quite comfortable. These are cushy seats, and in fact, going to this location, I had to drive for more than 2 hours, and I felt really comfortable. The thing is, you've got some pretty aggressive bolsters here on the side of the body, so if you're a little bit bigger than I am an average Asian, guys, well, you might feel a bit of a pinch on your love handles when you're driving the Tivoli. So it would be better if you could hit the gym and go on a diet in case you find that the seats are a bit on the tight side. Now, having said that, guys, as I mentioned, well, the seats are quite comfortable when it comes to long drives. Now, when it comes to handling and steering feel, well, the handling capabilities of the Tivoli is one of its strong points. This has a very good handling response to it, despite being a subcompact crossover. It feels like you're driving a hatchback, in fact. It is actually that good. And I love the steering feel of this car because, well, the steering feedback is nicely weighted. And oh boy, it has a nice good heft to it, and the steering geometry is quite sharp. As you can see, I'm going to take this corner a little bit quicker than normal. I love the handling, guys. I feel like I'm in a sporty hatchback rather than a subcompact crossover. It is that good. And I believe it's owed to the fact that you've got some nice 18-inch wheels here and some really thin, low-profile tires. Now, unfortunately, that sharp handling response that the Tivoli can give you has a drawback. You see, when it comes to not-so-perfect roads and when it comes to bumpy streets, well, the ride could be a little bit on the stiff side. You could feel all the imperfections of the road, and it could get a bit too jarring at times. Now, that's the price that you pay for having a sporty handling response in your subcompact crossover. However, when we were traversing the highway on a nice smooth pavement, well, the Tivoli was nicely composed and the NVH levels were superb. There were no highway noise. I wasn't getting any tire noise inside the cabin, and despite having a diesel motor up there in front, well, it doesn't really have too much of a diesel rattle, and that is also one bit of good news. When you're accelerating at speed, the Tivoli sounds like a regular petrol crossover. And that's something that blew me away, guys, because I was expecting that the diesel motor would be really loud and noisy, but, well, that's not the case for the Ssangyong Tivoli Diesel Premium. That's probably the reason why Ssangyong is the Korean SUV specialist. My goodness. Let's try braking this time. Whoop. Oh yeah. Another good thing about the Ssangyong Tivoli, you've got strong brakes, especially for a car this small. And that's something that you also need, especially since you've got a ton of torque, 324 Newton meters of torque, starting at the low end. I think as low as 1500 RPM. So yeah, you need to have some really strong brakes. And that's also a plus for the Ssangyong Tivoli Diesel Premium. Overall guys, well, the Ssangyong Tivoli Diesel Premium tickles my fancy, especially when it comes to the driving dynamics and handling department. Granted, I'm leaning more towards the sporty and performance aspect when it comes to cars and driving, and maybe that's the reason why I'm liking this vehicle. If you're looking more at the comfort side of the spectrum, well guys, you might be a little bit disappointed because of that slightly stiffer ride that you'll get from the Ssangyong Tivoli. But, well, if you're somebody like me who prefers to have a really good handling dynamic, well, the Tivoli Diesel Premium is a serious contender when it comes to your shopping list. The Ssangyong Tivoli Diesel Premium may be the smallest diesel crossover in the local market, but it sure packs a big punch when it comes to the acceleration and driving dynamics department. Not to mention that it also looks pretty cool at the same time. It's a great value alternative for people who prefer to have a diesel mill when it comes to their crossovers. Plus the fact that Ssangyong is known as the Korean SUV specialist, and they also give a 5-year vehicle warranty for all their cars, as well as a free 3-year PMS package, means that the Ssangyong Tivoli Diesel Premium will give you many years of hassle-free motoring. Thanks for watching.